Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahams. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter number 5, Vidura's talks with Maitreya, text number 22. Atate Bhagavad Leela Yoga Mayoru Brimhita Vishvastit Yudbhavantartha Varnayam Jnanu Purvasha Atate Bhagavad Leela Yoga Mayoru Brimhrata Vishvastit Yudbhavantartha Varnayam Jnanu Purvasha Atate Bhagavad Leela Yoga Mayoru Brimhita Vishvastit Yudbhavantartha Varnayam Jnanu Purvasha. Atate Bhagavad Leela Yoga Mayanu Ganas Jnanu Purvasah. Atate Bhagavad Leela Yoga Mayoru Brimhita Vishvastit Yudbhavantartha Varnayam Yanupurvasha. Mataji's. Atate Bhagavad Leela Yoga Mayoru Brihmata Vishvastit Yudbhavantartha Varnayam Yanupurvasha. Atate Bhagavad Leela Yoga Mayoru Brihmata Vishvastit Yudbhavantartha Varnayam Yanupurvasha. Word for word, Atha, therefore, Te, unto you, Bhagavat, pertaining to the personality of Godhead, Leelaha, pastimes, Yogamaya, energy of the Lord, Uru, greatly, Brihmataha, extended by, Vishva, of the cosmic world, Stiti, maintenance, Udbhava, creation, Anta, dissolution, Arthaha, purpose, Varnayami, I shall describe, Anupurvasaha, systematically. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhayachan Naravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. I shall therefore, this is Maitreya speaking to Vidura, I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends His transcendental potency for creation, maintenance and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur one after another. Purport. The omnipotent Lord, by His different energies, can perform anything and everything He likes. The creation of the cosmic world is done by His Yogamaya energy. Translation again. I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends His transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur, one after another. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adigaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're talking from 3rd canto, chapter 5, Vidura's talks with Maitreya. So this beginning of this chapter, we saw Vidura approach Maitreya, who was, I believe, the confluence or the I believe it was in the beginning of the Ganga. Unfortunately, let's see where I can find this. Yeah, so he was on the bank of the Yamuna, or with Uddhava, and then he reached. Interesting. The source of the. He was in Hardwar, source of the Ganges. So while Maitreya was sitting there, Vidura approached him and asked him about Krishna. But he didn't immediately ask him about Krishna's pastimes. Out of humility, can we reduce the volume? Out of humility, then he talked about first the material creation, and then after that he slowly eased into asking about Krishna directly. So seeing Maitreya sort of wondering where to start speaking from, Vidura prompts him, can you kindly please speak about the Purusha avatars? Kindly chant all those superhuman transcendental activities of the supreme control of the personality of Godhead, who accepted incarnations fully equipped with all potency for the full manifestation and maintenance of the cosmic creation. So when we're talking about the maintenance, manifestation and dissolution or destruction of the cosmic manifestation, we're dealing with the Purusha avatars. And the Purusha avatars are 3 in number. As we know, Krishna is Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, that he is the fountainhead of all the incarnations of God. In fact, it's mentioned by Lord Brahma that Deepachir eva hi dasantaram apipetya, that just as you have many candles in the room, and you have one candle that's lit, and then that candle lights all the other candles. Similarly, Krishna and his avatars are non-different. But there's still a distinction in the sense that the original candle was Krishna. So, from Krishna we have expansion of Sri Balaram, and from Sri Balaram then we have the Chaturvyuha, and you go all the way down to Mahavishnu, who's lying on the Karnadakashai ocean. And it's mentioned that from Mahavishnu's pores come all the universes. Just simply by his breathing, all the universes emanate from the pores of his skin. And he then enters into those universes, those egg-like universes, and he becomes Garbhadakashaya Vishnu, who lies on the Garbha ocean. And after that, he then manifests himself, permeates the whole cosmic manifestation as his form of Kshiradakashaya Vishnu or Paramatma. So this is the Purusha avatars, Karnadakashaya Vishnu, Kshiradakashaya Vishnu and Garbhadakashaya Vishnu. And this is what Maitreya will talk about in the next couple of chapters. In fact, in the next couple of chapters we'll talk about in detail how the universe came to be, which is a very interesting topic because it helps us detach ourselves from material nature. Because then we understand that actually before material nature was created or came into existence, manifested, the spiritual world existed with the Supreme Personality of Godhead there. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead was the one that directed the whole show. So after glorifying Vidura and explaining or humbly beginning his repetition of what he heard from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what he had spoken to Uddhava, Maitreya then glorifies Vidura and then starts speaking about the material cosmic manifestation. I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends his transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur one after the other. So it's mentioned that Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has actually nothing to do. All of his potencies, parasya shaktir vividhaiva shuyate, swabhaviki jnana balakriyacha. Everything is done by his energies. So when Krishna desires something to be done, his energies come together and immediately execute it. And material energy is just another one of those energies. Now, I'll go to the next purport because this one's quite short. But here Prabhupada is saying the omnipotent Lord by his different energies can perform anything and everything he likes. The creation of the cosmic world is done by his Yogamaya energy. For us, this Yogamaya energy is like a curtain. So when you're on Krishna's side, it's Yogamaya. But when you're against Krishna, it's Mahamaya. It's illusory. It helps us forget Krishna very easily. Whereas when you're with Krishna, Yogamaya helps you always remember Krishna. But it's interesting, she also help you forget Krishna, but helps you forget Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, she helps you remember Krishna in your particular rasa. Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya or Madhurya. So, this Yogamaya potency of the Lord is his internal potency, and this external energy of the Lord is his external potency. So something that's separate from him. But here's the interesting thing. Actually, it's non-different from the Lord because Shakti Shaktimatayo Abhedha. Both the energy and the energy of the Lord are non-different. In one sense, they are both the same. I was reading in 10th canto recently. After Uddhava comes to Vrindavan, this is after Krishna had left Vrindavan and all the Brajavasis were complete, separation from the Lord, completely devastated. It's mentioned that when Uddhava entered into Vrindavan, after getting the instruction by the Lord to give his message, when he entered into Vrindavan, he saw all the cows, the bulls fighting each other, the bulls mating with the cows. He saw the calves jumping here and there, and he saw everything as if it was a nice situation in Vrindavan. But actually Krishna had manifested or expanded his Yogamaya potency to show that everything in Vrindavan was happening normally. But actually the situation was that all the Brajavasis were completely devastated that they could not perform their duties properly, because Krishna had left. So when Uddhava entered into Vrindavan, it's mentioned there that he talked to Nanda Maharaj, and Nanda Maharaj asked, how is Krishna doing? Does he remember his mother and father? He killed this and this demon, he protected us in this situation, and he became overwhelmed in ecstasy. And Yashoda Mai, sitting nearby, hearing the pastime, she couldn't say anything. All she could do was cry out of ecstasy. And it's mentioned out of her affection, breast milk was flowing. So she had so much love and affection for the Lord. And it's mentioned there that Uddhava, seeing such affection, he was completely awestruck. And he started glorifying Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai. But he started glorifying Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, saying that your son is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and your lives are successful because you have absorbed yourself in just simply hearing and chanting about Krishna. And then he finishes speaking to them, and then it's mentioned the next morning after performing his daily rituals, then he meets the gopis, and he sees the gopis' ecstatic love for Krishna. And so after seeing that, and then hearing of Srimati Radharani's ecstatic Mahabhav expressions of love, of separation from Krishna, known as the Brahmara Geet, or the Song of the Bee. After hearing all of that, it's very interesting that Uddhava immediately then starts glorifying them, glorifies the Lord in his form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then starts giving the message of Lord Krishna. And it's mentioned there that Krishna then starts speaking Gyan Yoga to the gopis, saying that actually I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Before creation I existed, and actually after creation I still exist, and I permeate through everything. Just as throughout this whole universe it's simply made of the 5 elements, similarly everything here is just I permeate everything. I exist everywhere. And it's quite interesting because if you think about it, why is Krishna saying all of these technical details to the gopis? The gopis know all of this already. They're absorbed in transcendental love for the Lord. They don't need to hear these things, but they take heart in hearing it. In fact, the Acharyas comment that before the Ras Leela happened, Krishna mentioned Karma Yoga to them. They came to the forest and Krishna said, what are you doing here? It's not good for a respectful young girl to be here. What will your family think? You should go home. You shouldn't be in the forest with a young boy in the middle of the night. People will think. So he started talking about duties and following the duties. But the gopis understood his trickery. And he said, you're not going to do anything with that with us. And so they knew how to serve the Lord, because the Lord was increasing the pastime, increasing the relishment of that pastime. So he was adding obstacles to the pastime to make it more relishable. So then Uddhava continues Krishna's message, and he mentions this point of creation. How actually, as I mentioned before, the Lord, I existed before creation, and then from me everything emanates, and I permeate through everything. And the Acharyas mentioned there that actually Krishna didn't mean to explain any of this to the gopis. In fact, the gopis knew this already. But they are so advanced that they wanted to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Because they knew that only they could give the topmost pleasure to the Lord. Because they were the internal potency of the Lord directly. They were simply most of them were all expansions of Srimati Radharani. The others were just perfected living entities who, by the good fortune of association with devotees and their practice of devotional service, that they were able to finally attain the association of the Lord in that particular mode of worship. So there, yes, I just wanted to highlight that point, that Uddhava starts speaking about, mentioning about this whole creation of the universe. And there it's mentioned that the gopis already knew all of these things, but they weren't so much interested in that. They were simply interested in worshipping Krishna. And when I mean they were not so much interested in that things, means they understood all of those things, they accepted all of those things. But for them, their core focus was, how can we serve Krishna? That was their main focus. How can we serve Krishna personally? So, Krishna then continues to speak about how when the lover is away, then when the beloved is away, the lover constantly thinks of the beloved. So similarly, I have left so that your love for me will be increased. And so there it's mentioned that actually at this point, it is a blessing for everyone in this material world that the Lord has manifested or shown these pastimes of the gopis, because otherwise such pastimes, confidential pastimes of the Lord, would be completely difficult to understand. What to speak of difficult to understand, we'd never experience it. Like sometimes you read in Bhagavatam, a pure devotee will be thinking. You'll never get access to the thoughts of a devotee. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to understand what goes through the mind of a devotee. It's mentioned that Vaishnava Kriya Mudra Vijnana Bhujoy, that the pure devotee's thought process is very difficult to understand, because apparently it looks from the material perspective that they're just performing any particular activity, but actually they're not. And here's an example. It's mentioned that Prahlad Maharaj, his absorption in the Lord was so strong that eating, sleeping, all the the digestive processes, everything he was unaware of. He was just simply thinking of Krishna, and Krishna was maintaining his body. Krishna was making sure all of these things was happening. Right? But from the external perspective, what would we see? A 5-year-old boy doing his thing. But we wouldn't see the internal aspects of things. That's what Srimad Bhagavatam brings out. That here's the devotee, it looks like it's a material activity, but actually it's not. It's completely under the guidance of the Supreme Lord. So, here's the thing, devotees understand that. Devotees understand this material world is Krishna's and it's his energy and we should engage in his service. But this is the problem with the conditioned souls. We think it's separate from Krishna. We think, okay, Krishna, you've got your Yoga Maya, so this is our Mahamaya. This is for us. And that stems from this one thing, that I am the Supreme Lord, everything that exists is for my enjoyment. That one mentality causes us to use the material energy for our enjoyment. And that's the core bondage, that's the core problem of our entanglement. So therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the topmost and the most difficult or the most lowest of times. Because if you have a look, no one follows anything in the Shastra. No one cares. In fact, it's going to get worse. So right now Mahaprabhu's given us the best at the worst time. So we're using the best use of our bad bargain to understand that this material nature is not for our enjoyment, but for Krishna's pleasure. So by understanding how creation comes into existence, then it's very easy for us to understand Krishna consciousness and to give up material nature. Right? Because unfortunately, if you go out there, it's a very romantic view of material nature. Very romantic view, in the sense that when you go out there and you get absorbed in association with other living entities, absorbed or conditioned by Maya, then generally what happens is that you lose that focus of Srimad Bhagavatam. You end up starting to see the rosy picture of material nature. And without, helplessly, without any, restriction from your side, then you'll fall into the mentality of there's nothing better than the material nature. There's nothing better than this, They're trying this, they're trying that. Grass looks greener on the other side, and you'll endeavor so hard for it, but you'll never get it. And therefore Prabhupada says the materialist is like a donkey, because they will engage in activities, so heavy-duty activities throughout the day. They'll carry loads and loads and loads of anxieties. Prahlad Maharaj says that they're bharam udbhavato vimudhan, that it's such heavy load. Like there's a story Prabhupada says that one elderly lady is walking down the street with a bundle of wood, and as she's walking through, some people say different way, but here she walks and the bundle of wood falls down, and Krishna appears, and Krishna asks, so you're my devotee, you're carrying this, what would you like? And what does she ask for? Can you please put this bundle of wood back on my shoulder? In other stories you'll hear people say that a king passes by and the same situation there. Point of the story is that the old lady was simply concerned about putting the load back on her shoulder. And Prahlad Maharaj is crying seeing that. Why are you unnecessarily taking this burden? I still remember it was such a strong impression. I was traveling from Blacktown all the way to university, and in Seven Hills, as naturally you find a seat and you start falling asleep. And I remember as I was leaving Seven Hills Station, I was listening to a lecture of Prabhupada, and I've never heard Prabhupada beseeching, like crying sort of out to the hearers that, why are you rotting here in this material world? Why are you rotting here? Rotting means that you're simply here decomposing. It means that nothing's working. It's going downhill. And despite that, why do you choose to stay here? Right? So, unfortunately, our desire to stay here is because we want to carry that load on our head. That bharam udbhavato vimudhan. But here's the thing. Okay, there's nothing, we think there's nothing better to do, let's carry the burden on our head. But Prabhupada says in the example of the donkey, actually there's grass all around. But the donkey thinks that, no, I'll do this hard work and then my master will give me some good grass. Similarly, we think Maya is tempting us and we're falling prey to it. That let me go and Maya will definitely give me this. But we don't understand that the eternal happiness, the bliss of the soul engaging in Krishna's service is readily available. But very unfortunate of us, we think devotional service is very hard. As if engaging in material activities isn't hard. Right? But it's conditioning. It's all due to conditioning. Right? If you do something for very hard over a long period of time, then you become conditioned to it. It's like pain. You know why tooth pain is so difficult? The most difficult pain? Because it comes and goes. It doesn't just stay. Whereas other pain, you can get conditioned to it, right? Over a period of time, someone, okay, yeah, the pain is gone. But tooth pain comes and goes, comes and goes. Prabhupada calls it similar to the pangs of material existence. It comes and goes and gives us pain. But unfortunately, we're very expert in trying to condition ourselves to it. Yeah, it happens once in a while, what to do. We just gloss it over and then continue with life. Nothing better to do anyway, Prabhu Haribol. Let's just continue, right? So, but that's material engagement. Spiritual engagement is not difficult at all. Because Krishna, all he asks is patram pushpam phalam toyam, yo me bhaktya prayachati. Just simply by devotional service. And it's so easy actually, if you just engage in devotional service. This is mentioned in Uddhava Gita, that Krishna's so kind that you'll engage in some service and you'll never follow through, right? Sometimes we have that feeling. We'll do something. Yeah, sometimes it just stays in the mental platform. Yeah, I'll come for Mangaladi every day, or I'll do this and I'll do that, and it never happens. Okay, so when I come to the temple, I'll do it like this and I'll do like that, and you get distracted, something else happens. But Krishna still takes account of that. Krishna still appreciates that. And when you actually come and do it, and sometimes you fail at even doing it as well, right? So when you come to the temple, you want to do some devotional service, and sometimes, somehow or other, you get on some devotee's nerve, or you try and do some way, and the devotee says, no, you're not supposed to do it that way, and somehow or other it won't come to fruition. The result won't come. Still Krishna accepts. So tell me, is that hard or not? It's not, because if you go to material existence, unless you get the result, you're a failure. It's finished. Even if you get the result, you're a failure because it will disappear over a period of time. But we don't see it that way because we're conditioned. Prabhupada, you can use the word brainwashed. When the devotees, they had the court case against them. And Prabhupada saying, yes, we are washing your brain because it's full of cow dung. In other place, Prabhupada says, yes, this is the brainwashing movement. Because your brain is dirty, we are cleaning it for you. So come, we'll wash your brain. So the point here is that it's full of junk. Up there is just simply full of junk. And with that, we're trying to practice devotional service. Of course, 100% you'll go through difficulty. Because you're bringing baggage into devotional service, and you're expecting devotional service which is pure and completely free from material contamination to follow according to your lifestyle how it was before. It's not going to happen. And if you practice devotional service is so strong, you'll perform devotional service. But the problem is that the mind and the senses will continue to harass you until you let go of these conceptions. So therefore, we read Srimad Bhagavatam daily, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Even if it's just one word of Srimad Bhagavatam. My Guru Maharaj mentions that when he started reading when he started reading Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada often mentioned about chanting Hare Krishna. And so he got beads and everything by mail and everything, and he thought, okay, let me just chant just one bead. Just one bead. And he said that from that one bead, he doesn't remember how he got to 16. It just happened. Right? So similarly with Srimad Bhagavatam, it's the same thing. You're dealing with the literary incarnation of God. Krishna will reciprocate with your endeavors. You begin with a word, and eventually you'll realize you finished the chapter. Obviously not the same day, but over a period of time, you'll figure out. You'll realize that, how did I finish? Actually, sometimes goes the other way, right? You read, and then you read it again. It's like, did I even read this chapter? But at least you started. At least start that way. There's always a humble beginning for everything. Start in some way reading Srimad Bhagavatam. I remember one devotee. I think it was like a couple of years ago, and I was doing the Shastradan table, and one devotee came, and Nanda Gokul Prabhu introduced me to him, and I explained Srimad Bhagavatam to my best ability, and he had purchased the set. We went to his home, we installed it and everything, and a couple of years later, Prabhuji, you're not reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And I was telling Prabhu, start somewhere, just one word, please. You brought Srimad Bhagavatam home, just one word, just read Srimad Bhagavatam. Open up, at least look at the pictures, something. Because the thing is that we need to have some exposure. We need to give Krishna that opportunity, that one step that he can take excuse to just, load the mercy on us. Prabhupada's father often mentions this, and it's mentioned in Lilamrita, that he told Prabhupada, Krishna has 10 hands. What can you hide from him? What can you keep away from him? And Krishna has 10 hands. What can you carry that he gives? How much can you take what he gives? So Krishna will load the mercy on you. You'll become, Braja Prem Prabhu mentioned in previous class, you don't have to struggle too hard to be a mercy hunter. It'll come. You just have to take that one small endeavor for Krishna. And that will become like an avalanche. Some small snowball will come from the hill and it'll become a big snowball. It'll gather the snow. So eventually what you'll realize is that you'll become more and more devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But again, when we come back to conditioning, then we think when we practice devotional service, that's it. But you'll always get this epiphany or some sort of prompt from within the heart. I'm practicing devotional service this way, but when I first started devotional service, it was just like bliss. But now I'm practicing devotional service, it's not there. Why? You can always understand that when that situation happens, it's an opportunity to practice more devotional service. It means we're slacking. It just means we're slacking. In fact, even the pure devotees think that way. Devotional service is ever expanding. There's never enough of devotional service. And this scares us actually. Because you'll never get to the end of it, then you get scared. Because our idea is that when you get to the end, you can retire. That's it, finished. Peace, liberation, I don't have to do anything else. I get to the end and finish. But Maya teaches you that way as well. Because when you think about it, you work so hard in life, and if you're lucky, you have a family, and when you finish having a family, then you think of retirement. I worked so hard, now I'm going to get the money and retire. But if you have a look at nowadays in society, you get nothing actually. And when we were traveling Sankirtan, we were going to all the regional places in New South Wales, all these elderly people, they were just simply complaining actually. That they're increasing the job seeker, they're increasing people's Centrelink, but our pension stays the same. And many people were saying, look, it's already Wednesday, it's already Saturday, and I have to wait till next Wednesday to get my money. I have nothing left. I'm just, whatever I have is what I have. And often sometimes you'll see they'll maintain a pet or something like that. And one lady was telling me actually, she was saying, half my pension money goes in taking care of the dog. And you'll see outside their home, they'll have this big packet of dog food there. Right? So even then, where's the retirement, right? The anxiety is still there. Constantly thinking about how will I maintain myself, where will I get the money. So this idea of retirement, of liberation is just an illusion. It's like a mirage. Prabhupada often gives this example that you'll see an animal in the desert and they will see a mirage, and it will seem to be water, but they'll run after it, but it's not really there. But here's the thing, they'll keep running after it and they'll die from wanting to get it. But they won't see around them if there's any other options. So in the same way Prabhupada mentions that that's how we enjoy material existence. And if you want to take it one step further, the poet Vidyapati says that the desert, the material ocean or material existence is like a big desert. And enjoyment in this material world is like a drop of water. It's just simply a drop of water here. But we are so mad after that drop of water. We don't see actually the whole vast ocean that exists there of pure water. And I have to put that one there, because then you'll say, Prabhuji, but the ocean has salt water. No, right. But Krishna consciousness is there, full of enjoyment. Saukyam Tvanantam, Rishabdev says. But it comes at what price? Giving up material nature. That's what we consider as austerity. When we say Krishna consciousness is austere, it means you have to give up your own material desires. That's the only austere part of it. It's not the activity of devotional service. Again, coming back to that point of how devotional service is easy, if you think about it, when you practice anything in material life, the result has to come, otherwise it's considered a failure. So you'll endeavor, sometimes the endeavor will be years. Like Prabhupada says, I endeavored so hard to build a house and now it's on fire. Right? What was the point of it all? Right? Whole life you spent, what was the point of it all? So then it's just finished, that's it. But devotional service is not like that. Like for example, karma yoga, Krishna mentions, if you perform, not even karma yoga, karma. When you perform karma, you perform activities of worship to the demigods. You'll make a fire sacrifice and offer. If the mantra is chanted wrong, finished. You know what it's like to set up a yajna? You need to find the right brahmanas to chant the yajna in the mantras, right? You need to engage all the other varnas in that particular yajna as well, depending if you're a king or not. You have to get the ingredients of the yajna, and they have to be pure ingredients of the yajna. And then there's so many other lists of things that you must obtain to perform the yajna. Right? There's so many rituals that you have to perform for purification, qualification that you have to perform the yajna. And when you perform the yajna, if one syllable is pronounced wrong, you will not get the result. You will not get the result. Say you do perform it all and you get it right, it works out, the whole yajna is done properly. The result you get is temporary. You won't be able to maintain that result forever. That's material existence. On the other side, in Krishna's service, Swalpamapi asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, that if you just have even just one asset of devotional service, just one devotional service you performed. You go on the street and someone holds the book, someone says this book is nice but I don't want it. Oh, you Hare Krishnas are everywhere, right? Just that's enough. 1% bank balance is increasing. They'll always keep that. But material benefits, they won't stay. They will go. On top of that, even if you fail, Krishna will make sure that you're a success. Because you'll go out and endeavor in Krishna's service. And the easiest way to understand is when you go out on Harinam, you go out on Prasadam distribution, you go out on distributing Prabhupada's books. When you're engaged in the Sankirtan, then you'll see that you are not always successful. Like Krishna says to the cowherd boys, when they're in the forest and the cowherd boys start to think, okay, it's getting lunchtime, I think Krishna and Balaram are hungry. But if we say, Krishna, Balaram, are you hungry? They won't say anything. They won't. So what we'll say instead is that actually Krishna, Balaram, we're hungry. So then Krishna, Balaram being Bhakta Vatsala will say, okay, go nearby. The Dvija Patnis, the wives of the Brahmanas are there. And the Brahmanas themselves are there. You go to them and ask them. They're just finishing their yajna. They're in between, but it's a good point where you can take the prasad. So it's all good. You can go and ask them for the prasadam. And they get rejected and come back to Krishna despondent. And Krishna laughs actually at them. Can you imagine that? You get rejected and someone laughs at you? That would hurt like anything. And that's what happens on the streets. So then what happens is Krishna says, that's just the way of the world. That's just the way of begging. You got to learn that you're not always going to be successful. But Krishna appreciates the endeavor. You go out on the street and do just one small service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's Yare Deke Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh. on his order you just simply go and speak about Krishna, even if you fail in that endeavor, you start speaking about Krishna and then the topic goes somewhere else. When you come back to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we will be so pleased with you. So pleased with you, because you endeavored just a little bit to engage in his Sankirtan movement. Compare that to material enjoyment, right? Even if you just do, you tell someone, I just tried, so you can give me my paycheck, I just tried. It's not going to work. Actually, it was funny. I was doing book distribution last week, and I think it was Saturday, and I knocked on a door. No one opened, but then I saw some nice Nike shoes sitting there right in the rack. And it says there, you either do or you don't, try doesn't exist. You either do or you don't, try doesn't exist. And I was thinking, wow, that's like a Mahavakya as well, coming from a shoe. You can learn from a shoe. But yeah, devotional service is like that, material nature is like that. You either do it or you don't do it. You try, you fail. You try and you won't get the result. But devotional service is so nice that even if you try, Krishna takes that as a success. Krishna endeavors to engage you in his service. But Krishna is so expert that he knows how much of a cheat we are. That our try ends up becoming try for the rest of our life. It's not going to be like that. Krishna will make sure that you will put your effort in worshipping him and serving him. Prabhupada says in the Gita in the beginning, he says that Krishna wants all living entities to satisfy his senses, and he demands it. This is in the preface. Gita hasn't even begun. Second last paragraph there. Anyone who reads it, immediately Prabhupada says, Krishna demands it. Krishna wants you to satisfy his senses, and he demands it. So, why does he demand it? Because that small endeavor is enough to get some enjoyment. So we started speaking today about creation of material existence, and we're ending up in speaking about pure devotional service. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam will help you understand the nature of material world and then help you reject it. Reject it in the sense for your own sense enjoyment. Rather, you will then use it in Krishna's service. That anasaktasya visayan yataham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. That there is renunciation, and we have experience of renunciation. And that renunciation, I think once Rasraj Govinda Prabhu was telling me a story that he remembered that there was one particular friend he had, and he was married, and he got so excited about performing spiritual activities, not even Krishna consciousness, that he was talking about renunciation. Sometimes we go to most of the time it works like that. People go to spiritual path because it becomes very difficult for them to perform their material activities. So then this person decided, I'll become, sannyasi, I'll give up this material nature and then I'll become a tyagi, I'll renounce. And so he went and lived in the forest and gave up his family. And then Prabhu was telling me that this particular person could sustain. Because physically he gave up, but mentally it was still there. And it was eating him from within. So eventually he went back to his hometown and he told, I'm back now and everything. And the family rejected him. You just left like that? Well, what do you think? You're going to come back and we're going to accept? So the situation is like that. This is how our mind treats us. That renunciation is there. But that renunciation is known as Falgu. There is a river known as Falgu, and Rupa Goswami specifically uses this word Falgu. It's very interesting because this river, when you go and see it, it's just simply a dry bed. It's cracked, nothing is there. But actually, if you dig a little, water is flowing underneath. That's what false or dry renunciation is like. External show, but internal, still the fight is there for enjoyment. But Krishna says, Rupa Goswami says, no. Engage in nirbandhe Krishna sambandhe. First you see it as separate from Krishna, engage in Krishna's service. Krishna sambandhe, bring it in relation to Krishna. If you have anything in your life that's not in relation to Krishna, it should be rejected. Right? But an advanced devotee will use it in Krishna's service. And this point I like very much because I remember reading in Lilamrit that Prabhupada had taken his devotees to Kumbh Mela. Okay? And in Kumbh Mela, there are so many different transcendentalists, spiritualists of all kinds, of all different levels of understanding. So then what happened was one particular impersonalist came to Prabhupada and gave him a stack stack of pamphlets, flyers about his program and gave it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada graciously accepted, because Prabhupada knew how to act in time, place, circumstance. He didn't just reject it and said, "You're a Mayavadi, get out," He understood how to preach. He understood the situation. So he accepted it gracefully. And then he said, "What are we going to do with this? It's just preaching impersonalism. What are you going to do with it?" So then it's mentioned that every night during Kumbh Mela, Prabhupada would make sure that devotees would distribute prasad. He would always make sure hot prasad was distributed. And when one particular day came after that incident, that I think it was that night or the night after, Prabhupada then said to his devotees that were serving, he said, "Okay, now you don't serve what normal plates or whatever you're serving, you use the pamphlets. You use the pamphlets and serve with these pamphlets. Nirbandhe Krishna Sambandhe." Prabhupada knew how to use it in his service. Another one, it reminds me of when we were going through the 50th anniversary, Braja Prem Prabhu was explaining, in Great Transcendental Adventure, Kurma Prabhu's books, you read it. Even in Lilamrit you read it actually, it's quite interesting. When Upendra Prabhu, one of the first devotees who started this whole Hare Krishna in Australia, he got initiated, and everyone knew at that time, they were somewhat got trained that once you get initiated you need to give Guru Dakshin. You need to give something to the Guru. So you have to give something that's very dear to you to the Guru. So then what Upendra was thinking was that I have to give something that's very dear to him. He went to Prabhupada that day and he gave Prabhupada his favorite blanket. A blanket he had since childhood. And the baby blanket you'd hold, the kids holding the blanket with their thumb in the mouth, that type of blanket. So then he thought, this is very dear to me, I'll give it to Prabhupada. And when he gave it to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, "What shall I do with this?" And you know what Prabhupada used it for? He used it as a mat for guests to sit on. So Prabhupada knew how to utilize everything in Krishna's service. And you may think from a mundane point of view, like, Prabhupada didn't appreciate this. What is this, Like morally this is wrong, Someone gives gift and he uses it like that. But Prabhupada is not attached to moral. Prabhupada is transcendental. Morals have no use in front of Krishna's service if they all just, they're not for, gives him displeasure. What's the use of such morals? We only stick to Krishna's devotional service and pleasure for Krishna, that's it. So for Prabhupada, he exemplified this Yukta Vairagya principle. So first we learn Vairagya, we learn renunciation, the very basics, 4 regulative principles, chant Hare Krishna, be happy, right? Then after that we learn how to engage everything and anything in Krishna's service. So this idea comes gradually when we read Srimad Bhagavatam. But material nature is like this, spiritual nature is like this, let us engage in devotional service. Okay, so that's how this section of Srimad Bhagavatam will begin. It will be very technical, and slowly and gradually you'll understand how the material universe comes into existence. And that will give you heart, that actually, there is a process, something happens, we can explain it, but we don't want to be here. It happened like this, it happened like that, but we weren't supposed to be here. And it begins with one thing, and that's next verse, tomorrow's verse and purport. I was going to touch on it, but I ended up speaking about this verse. But main thing is of next verse is that before this whole cosmic manifestation, Krishna existed. And that should give us a lot of hope, because we're constantly struggling in material existence, and the main thing we struggle is death. Everything ends. What will happen after that? That's the biggest thing. What will happen after that, right? But actually Krishna existed before and Krishna existed after. So that means we will also be existing before and we will also exist after. But the Mayavadis, they take it the other way. So that's tomorrow's verse and purport. And the whole purport's about how Mayavadis are wrong. Okay? So I'll end here. Are there any questions before I finish? Yes, Prabhu. Go, I saw you first.
So, Prabhuji, you mentioned in this word that you said that Krishna is the enjoyer and Krishna is the maintainer, and he has made this material planet for his own entertainment.
Yep.
So whatever is happening according to Krishna.
Yep.
So there are miseries, there are chaos, there are so much of sorrows all around. So is this entertaining that Krishna?
You have to understand one thing, that material existence is not something that Krishna wanted in the first place. That's the main thing you should understand. This place exists because we want to live separate from Krishna. Like I was saying, there's spiritual energy where everything works according to Krishna's desire. Living entities make sure it happens that way. Where then there's a separated energy of Krishna. That too works for Krishna only. Right? It's mentioned that in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that the material energy, just like a husband will wake up the wife to enjoy, similarly the Lord will manifest his material potency to enjoy. He can enjoy. He can do that, but he doesn't want that manifestation to exist. Neither does he want the living entities to go into that manifestation. But we chose to go. And that choice is the cause of our misery. So Krishna doesn't enjoy, but Krishna knows how to enjoy. It's kind of like, we're sitting here in devotional service, we're practicing Krishna consciousness, and there are people out there suffering. Right? So then we can even criticize ourselves that people are suffering out there. Why are we sitting here performing devotional service, right? To a certain extent, we can come to the understanding that, the option is there. The preaching is happening, but they make the choice not to come. So you can't do anything about it. You continue on with your devotional service at least, right? Because you have that faith, at least by doing devotional service, then Krishna will be pleased, and naturally the whole world will be pleased. Yasmin tushte jagat tushta. You please Krishna, everyone will be pleased. Just like watering the root of the tree. Right? That's the main thing. You water the root of the tree, everything will be satisfied. Okay? Hare Krishna. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Something I've been thinking about a bit lately, and I'm not sure if it's actually working with the energy that you were speaking earlier about how Krishna would put obstacles in the way of the government instead of. Should we see the obstacles in our life like that, or are we understanding that there's something in karma, or does it matter either way?
It does matter, and yes, we should see it that way. The reason being is that in Bhagavad Gita, I keep forgetting the sloka and number, but in this section, this is a very nice purport where Prabhupada talks about the definition of a muni. And if you read the last couple, like the last half of the second chapter, if you read it, it's like nectar for devoted, if you go through difficulties, especially when you preach, when you're going through difficulties. But in general, when you go through difficulties, if you just read that section, Prabhupada gives you the mentality. Because Arjuna is asking Krishna, how does a transcendentalist walk? How does he talk? In other words, how does he carry himself? What is his thought process? How does he speak? Or how does he relate with the world? So on and so forth. So in that section, Prabhupada mentions that when any good karma comes, any good comes in their life, a devotee worships the Lord and thanks him. That thank you for allowing me to perform devotional service in this wonderful atmosphere, in this particular way. So that devotee is thinking, let me use it in Krishna service. And then Prabhupada says, when it goes through difficulty, then he thinks that I deserve worse, but Krishna has kindly reduced it, so I'm very thankful to Krishna. That's the mentality of a devotee. Now, in terms of whether it's my karma, is it Krishna putting the obstacle to increase my devotional service, it's both. Krishna reduces your karma to the bare minimum, after initiation especially, so that you have enough to perform devotional service and get out, get rid of the body and don't take it cheaply. Second, on the other side, Krishna knows how to get the best out of you in devotional service. Krishna knows it, and we should know that Krishna knows. But the reason why we don't accept it is because we have our own desires. Krishna, take me back to Godhead the way I want to go back to Godhead, right? Now. I won't do anything, you take me back now. So that's the thing. That's the